Today's lecture will be devoted to industry. It's a proven fact that a country with strong industrial sector has shown more economic growth, improved national income, and promoted living standard of people. So, Lecture 10, British National Economy. The economy of the United Kingdom is highly developed social market. It is the fifth largest national economy in the world, measured by nominal gross domestic product. United Kingdom is one of the most globalized economies and comprises England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. In 2019, the UK was the fifth largest exporter in the world and the fifth largest importer. So this week we shall speak about the structure of industry and trade, how industry is organized, industry in action, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, mechanical engineering, financial services, and some other sectors of the economy. Britain became the world's first industrialized country in the mid-19th century. Wealth was based on manufacturing iron and steel, heavy machinery and cotton textiles, and on coal mining, shipbuilding and trade. Manufacturing still plays an important role, and Britain excels in high-technology industries like chemicals, electronics, aerospace, and offshore equipment, where British companies are among the world's largest and most successful. The British construction industry has made its mark around the world and continues to be involved in prestigious building projects. The most important industrial developments in the past years or so in Britain have been the exploitation of North Sea oil and gas, and the rapid development of microelectronic technologies and their widespread application in industry and commerce. At the same time, service industries have been assuming ever-increasing importance and now account for around two-thirds of output and employment. Britain, the world's fifth largest trading nation, the biggest established trade grouping in the world. As in all European countries, the economic system in Britain is a mixture of private and public enterprise. Exactly how much of the country's economy is controlled by the state has fluctuated a great deal in the last 50 years and has been the subject to continual political debate. From 1945 until 1980, the general trend was for the state to have more and more control. Various industries became nationalized, in other words, owned by the government, especially those concerned with the production and distribution of energy. So, too did the various forms of transport and communication services, as well, of course, as the provision of education, social welfare, and healthcare. By 1980, pure capitalism probably formed a smaller part of the economy than in any other country in Western Europe. From 1980, the trend started going in the other direction, turning state-owned companies into companies owned by individuals who became shareholders. This approach was a major part of the thinking of Thatcherism. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister at that time. Between 1980 and 1994, a large number of companies were privatized or denationalized, that is, they were sold off by the government. In 1988, there were more shareholders in the country than there were members of unions. In some sectors, a small number of large companies and their subsidiaries are responsible for a substantial proportion of total production, notably in the vehicle, aerospace and transport equipment industries. The annual turnover of the biggest company, British Petroleum, makes it the 11th largest industrial grouping in the world and the second largest in Europe. 5 British firms are among the top 20 European Union companies in terms of capital employed. The construction industry contributed 5% of GDP and employed about 1.2 million people, 4% of the total number of employees. Total domestic fixed capital investment in construction was £812 million. Industry in action. Chemicals. Britain's chemical industry is the third largest in Europe. The nation's fourth biggest manufacturing industry. It provides direct employment for 303,000 people. Around half of its output is exported, making it Britain's greatest single export earner. Many major chemical companies in Britain are multinationals. Several are subsidiaries of overseas companies, and others are specialist manufacturers of pharmaceuticals such as Glaxo and Wellcome. Imperial Chemical Industries is the sixth largest chemical company in the world, with a range of 8,000 products. The British pharmaceuticals industry is one of the biggest in the world. It is the fifth largest manufacturer and fourth largest exporter of medicine. The industry is made up of about 360 companies of all sizes. The industry manufactures a whole range of medicines, human and veterinary medicines, medical dressings and dental materials. In the last 10 years or so, the largest growth has been in medicines that act on the respiratory system, followed by cardiovascular, muscular and skeletal, anti-infectives and alimentary tract remedies. Biotechnology and the growing understanding of the biology of cells are bringing new medical opportunities. As genes in the human body are gradually sequenced, scientists are beginning to discover the molecular basis of diseases, opening the way to new treatments. Three major research areas in which Britain leads are drug design, biotechnology, and gene therapy. Mechanical engineering. Exports of mechanical machinery represented 13% of total visible exports. Output includes pressure vessels, heat exchangers, and storage tanks for chemicals and oil refining plant, steam raising boilers including those for power stations, nuclear reactions, water and sewage treatment plant, and fabricated steelwork for bridges, buildings, and industrial installations. Britain is among the world's major producers of tractors, which make up over 3/4 of total output of agricultural equipment. Massey Ferguson and Ford are major producers of tractors. Technical innovations include computer-controlled tractors, an ultra-efficient pesticide sprayer, and combined mower conditioners that reduce drying time for grass. Most sales of textile machinery are to export markets. British innovations include computerized color matching and weave simulation, friction spinning, high-speed computer-controlled knitting machines, and electronic jacquard attachments for weaving looms. Britain's mining and tunneling equipment leads in the production of coal cutting and road heading equipment, hydraulic roof supports, conveying equipment, flame-proof transformers, switchgear, and subsurface transport equipment and control systems. Britain has the fourth largest electronics industry in the world. The computer sector produced an extensive range of systems, central processors, and peripheral equipment, from large computers for large-scale data processing and scientific work to mini and microcomputers for control and automation system and for home, educational, and office use. Britain makes 40% of Europe's desktop computers. Nearly half of these computers and peripheral equipment intended for export are made in Scotland. Several leading overseas manufacturers of data processing equipment, for example IBM, have established manufacturing plants in Britain. Another sector of the industry manufacturers radio communications equipment, radar. radio and sonar navigational reads for ships and aircraft, thermal imaging systems, alarms and signaling equipment, public broadcasting equipment and other capital goods. Radar was invented in Britain, and British firms are still in the forefront of technical advances. Britain has substantial oil and gas reserves offshore on the United Kingdom continental shelf. Thousands of people are employed offshore, while a further thousands work in support industries, building oil rigs, designing platforms and pipelines, operating helicopters and boats and so on. Gross capital investment from British sources in oil and gas extraction represents about 20% of British industrial investment. Output of crude oil and natural gas liquids in Britain averaged just over 2 million barrels a day, making Britain the world's 10th largest oil producer. Britain has large food and drink manufacturing industry, which has accounted for a growing proportion of total domestic food supply in recent decades. Approximately 500,000 people are employed in the industry. Demand for health and slimming foods are also continuing to expand, and there has been a rise in sales of organically grown produce as well as a variety of products for vegetarians. Of major significance among alcoholic drinks produced in Britain is Scotch whisky, one of Britain's top export earners. There are 110 distilleries in Scotland, where the best-known brands of blended Scotch whisky are made from the products of single malt and single grain whisky distilleries. About 4/5 of Scots whisky production is exported to more than 200 countries. The soft drinks industry is the fastest growing sector of the grocery trade. Britain's aerospace industry is the third largest in the Western world, after the United States and France. Rolls-Royce is one of the world's three major manufacturers of aero engines, with a turnover of £2 million for its aerospace division. Over 400 companies in Britain are engaged in space activities. The industry is strong in the manufacture of satellites and ground infrastructure for satellite systems, in the analysis and exploitation of data from satellites. Britain is a major financial center, home to some of the world's most prestigious banking, insurance, securities, shipping, commodities, and other financial services and markets. Historically, the financial services industry has been located in the square mile in the City of London. This remains broadly the case, even though markets for financial and related services have grown and diversified greatly. Manchester, Cardiff, Liverpool, Leeds, Edinburgh, and Glasgow are also financial centres. The city, the collection of markets and institutional around the square mile, is noted for having the greatest concentration of foreign banks in the world, a banking sector that accounts for about 20% of total international bank lending, one of the world's biggest international insurance markets, handling about 20% of general insurance business placed on the international market, the world's largest foreign exchange market, one of the world's most important financial derivatives markets, and the greatest concentration of international bond dealers. Britain pioneered the development of a professional tourism industry. Around 1.5 million people are employed in the industry in Britain, which contributes millions of pounds annually to the economy, about 5% of GDP. Britain is one of the world's 6 leading tourist destinations. Most British holidaymakers wishing to go abroad buy package holidays from travel agencies, where the cost covers transport and accommodation. The most popular package holiday destinations for Britons are Spain, France, and Greece. Winter skiing holidays to resort in Austria, France, and Italy, and Switzerland and other countries continue to attract large numbers of Britons. There are around thousands of travel agencies in Britain. Although most travel agents are small businesses, there are a few very large firms such as Land Poly and Thomas Cook, which have hundreds of branches. Britain is fully committed to an open multilateral trading system. It exports more per head than the United States and Japan. Overseas sales of goods and services are equivalent to about a quarter of its GDP. Invisible earnings of British companies place Britain in the top 3 countries in the International League table of overseas invisible earners. It is the world's second biggest overseas investor and the leading destination for inward direct investment into the European Union. Agriculture, one of Britain's most important industries, supplies nearly 60% of the country's food, directly employs over 650,000 people, and uses almost 70% of the land area. However, its share of the gross domestic product is less than 3%, the lowest figure among the developed countries. British agriculture is efficient, for it is based on modern technology and research. There are 3 types of farming: pastoral, arable, and mixed. Arable farming is dominated in the eastern parts of England and Scotland, whereas in the rest of the country, pastoral and mixed farming are prevalent. Besides the 3 above-mentioned types of farming, there is another type of farming, crofting, which is still practiced in the remote areas of northern and western Scotland. This pattern of cultivating a small area of land around the farm and maintaining a much larger area of rough pasture for stock rearing is typical of crofting communities in Scotland and shows a clear adaptation to a difficult environment. The potato crop is widespread all throughout the country. Large-scale potato and vegetable production is undertaken in the eastern and southeastern of England around the River Thames and Humber, and in South Lancashire. Sugar from sugar home-grown sugar beet provides about 47% of requirements, most of the remainder being refined from raw sugar imported from developing countries. Sugar beet covers about 3% of the total cropland. The fishing industry. Britain's second major source of food is the surrounding sea. The fishing industry provides about 70% of British fish supplies and is an important source of employment and income in a number of ports, especially those situated on the North Sea shore. Comprehension questions cover the main points of the lecture. So your task is to choose 3 questions given there, write answers, and send to Google Classroom. Thank you for your interest in country studies. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel.